Hey, Adam from Tested here in my cave with a pretty cool movie industry model making show and tell for you. I've brought out a couple of artifacts I saved from my tenure at the Industrial Light and Magic model shop. And I've got 3 pieces to show off today. The first piece comes from the Brendan Fraser film, The Mummy, on which I worked on the first Mummy. And there's specifically a bunch of large interiors that the model shop made for that. Sometimes they're called bigatures, sometimes they're called set extensions, so that the actors will be shot on a set where everything above their heads is a set, but then about 10 feet, it goes to a blue screen, and then the model shop might make the set that fills in all the stuff above their heads. And this part is from one of those scenes in The Mummy. My job supervisor was Barbara Afonso, who worked on the original Star Wars films. And what she asked me to do was, there was this quarter round detail all around this large interior that we were making on the Mummy. And we needed this molding to be repeatable. So what Barbara asked me to do was to make the master for the mold room. And so what I did was, I had the art director's drawings of the separations and of these little scarab stamps. And what I did to make these was I made a quarter round using some round pipe, and then I covered it with about probably 5 millimeters of oil-based clay, like a plastiline or plasticine. And then on the laser cutter, I made myself this little dimensional stamp out of laser cut acrylic. And I made it so that it's stamped on a slight curve. I literally made it so that it would accommodate this curve. And then I manufactured a piece of this molding detail that was about 30 inches long. We needed something like 12 feet of it for the entire set, and we needed it to meet in corners and do other stuff like that. So I made enough so we could do long runs of it. And when I made my piece, I then sent it to the mold room, who made a casting of it, and then we cast up a bunch of pieces, just like this, in a glass reinforced resin so that it would be dimensionally stable and also rigid. And if you look really close, you can see that I've actually done weathering to make it look like it was carved out of sandstone. And that's done by stippling with a brush that I've actually snipped close to the quick so that the bristles were a little more dimensional and had a little more strength behind them. And I kind of went at this until the whole thing sort of felt like a piece of carved sandstone. And then I got it approved by my boss. I got it built by the mold room. So that's a little bit of movie magic. The second piece is not something that I worked on, but is indicative of the crazy amount of beautiful detail that can be done inside a model shop. This was done for one of the battleships for the movie Pearl Harbor. Industrial Light and Magic worked extensively on Pearl Harbor and made what I think is like a 15-foot long model of the battleship, the wooden deck battleship. It's an amazing, unbelievable model. The level of detail. Understand that these model makers are often enthusiasts about specific times and places of the world, and World War II is a pretty common one. So this is a searchlight from that scale battleship, and if you'll take a look at these close-up shots, you'll just see the kind of incredible level of detail that was put on these things for quick shots. I mean, I know it's like part of this whole sequence, but it's turtles all the way down when you get a bunch of model makers doing something they love to do. And I will also point out this searchlight includes, yep, the Universal Greebly. You can't escape it. It's on spaceships and battleships alike. There it is. Yeah, I like that. The last piece, well, I think the statute of limitations has passed. The last piece is a bit of test amber from Jurassic Park. Now, I don't know much about this test amber, but I do know that this was a piece of, I believe, polyester resin cast up by the model shop to do some tests for close-ups of drilling into amber for the sequence in which they're trying to extract mosquito DNA. So I think this was cast to be some color and surface and see-through-iveness camera testing. The reason I have it is because one day I was working in the model shop at ILM, and Richard Miller, one of the original ILM model makers who worked on all the original Star Wars films, and most famously, Richard sculpted Leia's metal bikini from Return of the Jedi, he came out into the shop one day and said, "Hey, we have this giant chunk of a color resin test from Jurassic Park. Anyone want a piece?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." And we went over to the bandsaw and we cut me this chunk. And a couple of other people took a chunk, but this chunk was mine. And I love that I've got this little bit of film history, an early camera test piece from the amazing Jurassic Park. Every model maker who works in film or television or commercials ends up with a collection of weird, wonderful artifacts like these. If you know one, ask them some questions. You're sure to get some great stories. Thanks for joining us.